I am Baltin Sawe Lama Rinpoche, Daki Jiwa Bede de Jamakati Jimakone Jisu. Goson to Game Water Santo, so Simjanam get Sambata, no Ichirachita. Chejun to Montequa in Chikiko local to so. And good morning or good evening, depending wherever you are. And as requested by our center in KL, Malaysia. So I will be giving some series of talks on the torch of certainty by Jamgon. And before I give the talk, so I think it would be much better if I give a very short description about myself. And I am Wangchuk, Topden. As title, I have the title of Choje Lama given by His Holiness the 17th Karmapa, and I am a monk of Thrangu Monastery. And I've been a monk here in the monastery for almost 25 years. And I went to Thrangu Rinpoche school. I also went to Thrangu Rinpoche's higher Buddhist studies or Sheta. And then I also went to the 3 years retreat. And I was also Rinpoche's attendant for quite a long while. And since 2015, I've been taking in charge of all the monasteries of Rinpoche here in Nepal and all the centers everywhere in the world. And 2 years back, His Holiness the 17th Karmapa gave the title of Choje Lama. And I think that's like a very short description or story about myself. And talking about the topic that we will be going through, it's the Torch of Certainty written by Jamgon. And instead of going like word by word, I think it would be much better if we just go like the meaning of the text, or just like what the text is trying to say. Because sometimes when we go by word to word, I think it's quite easy to understand when we go by word by word. And since we already have so many different translation, it's quite easy for us to understand by word. But we will be going just like the meaning. And when we are talking about Monto, so here the text goes, so the text here is the torch of certainty. And when we are talking about torch of certainty, or when we are like talking about torch, so this means like a light. And we say that no matter how long there has been darkness, whether for suppose like this very dark place, and it doesn't matter how long that place has been in darkness, no matter if it has been dark for like 5 months, 10 months, a few years, or maybe even centuries, or maybe like even more than centuries, the place is going to be very dark. But as soon as there is a torch, or as soon as there is a light, the place lightens up. And the darkness doesn't say that, oh, I've been in darkness for so many years. Now, I cannot lighten up because I've been in dark for 100 years, so I will take much longer. Or like I've been in darkness for like 5 months, so I'll take little less than a few years. It's not like that. Whether it has been in dark for few days, few months, few years, or few decades or centuries, as soon as there is a light, the darkness is removed and there's a light. So just like that, this text or this wonder, whenever you do, it doesn't matter how long you have been in samsara, or how long if you have been ignorance. If you practice it well, and if you like try to follow what has been said in this text, it is going to give you wisdom, and it is going to take you to enlightenment. So that is why we have the torch of certainty. And is it like you are going to gain enlightenment, or is it like you are going to gain wisdom? Is it like, is there a doubt? No, it is not doubt. It is for sure that you will be gaining wisdom, and with the wisdom that you will gain, and you will be able to gain enlightenment. So that is why there is certainty that you will get enlightened if you follow all the teachings here. And in the beginning, so it starts with praising his main teachers, like is praising the Marpa, Mila, Tapo, and then Karmapa, and Siddhi and all this. And when we are talking about our lineage, so since we are Kagyu, and our forefathers are the Marpa, the Mila, and the Tapo. Tapo or Kampopa, as some of you know him as Kampopa, some of you know him as Tapo. And I think it would be very good if I am able to show a very short stories about these three great masters. Because sometimes people say that to gain enlightenment or to be able to practice, you should be a monk. There are so many people saying that, and so many people say that I'm not able to practice because I'm not a monk. And they are like, oh, only you guys can practice. Quite a few friends of mine did tell me this, that you guys can practice because you are a monk. We are not like that. We have things to do, we have work to do, we have this to do, that to do, and we don't get enough time. And I hear that quite a lot. But these three great masters, they showed us the way, because when we are talking about Marpa, he was like, from the outside, he was very like a normal person. He had a wife, he had a son, he had a family, he had wealth, he had house and all this. But still, he got time to practice. And he was a very famous translator. So he had translated so many books, so many Buddhist texts. But still, he could find some time to practice, and he was able to practice. And because of the time that he was able to spend on practicing, he was able to gain enlightenment. So he or his life showed us that you don't necessarily have to be a monk to gain enlightenment or to gain wisdom. And after that, Marpa, his main student, was Milarepa. And Milarepa was a little different. He was not a monk, but he was not also like Marpa or like very normal person. He didn't have a wife, he didn't have a house, he didn't have so many things to do, but all he did was practice. And he didn't live in the city or like town. So he was always trying to meditate in all these remote places. And because of all the practices that he did, he was also able to gain enlightenment. So you don't necessarily have to be like a Marpa, but even if you be like a Milarepa, you can still gain enlightenment. And then the third one, or the third forefather of our Kagyu tradition, is Kampopa. And he was a monk. And even though he was a monk, even though he did pujas, even though he gave teachings, he received teaching, but he was still able to practice. And then, because of all the practices that he did, because of all the teachings that he received from Milarepa, he was also able to gain enlightenment. So these three very different great masters, even though they have the same qualities from inside, but from outside, the qualities that these three possessed was very different when we look from outside, because one was like a very normal human being who had a wife, family, house, and like this. And then Milarepa was very different from him. And then Kampopa was a monk. So these three shows us that it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be a monk to gain enlightenment. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should be a monk to have wisdom or to have more time to practice. No matter what you are, if you are willing to put your effort, you can still get enlightened, just like Marpa, Mila, and Kampopa. So this, I think, is very important for us to know, so that most of the students or disciples who are not monk can also get encouraged, because we do hear quite a lot of them saying that, oh, we cannot get enlightened, or we cannot practice much like that, so you shouldn't be disheartened. So you should always think that if I give the effort, if I have the diligence, if I spend time, then I will definitely be able to gain enlightenment. So that is very important. And and now we have gained, or we have attained this life, and this life is quite difficult to get because it's quite difficult to attain a human body. And since we have already attained a human body, it's more difficult to get a precious human body. And when we are talking about precious, we don't mean that we are born into a very rich family or very famous family, something like that. We mean when we are talking about precious, we are talking about a birth where we have been connected in with the Dharma, where we are able to receive the Dharma, where we are able to have a teacher, and where we are able to gain or receive teaching from him or her, and then we are able to practice. And we should not go this into our waste. So that is why it is very important that we shouldn't let this life that we have attained to go into waste. And so that is why we should practice, and we should make sure that we are able to get enlightened in this life. If not enlightenment, then maybe a better life in next life. So we will be able to practice more and gain enlightenment. So that is why it is very important for us to do that. And now, yeah, in the text we have like two main different. So we have the preliminary practice, and then we have the main practice. But we will be talking more about the preliminary practice. And within the preliminary practice, or within the Ngondro, we have the general Ngondro, and then we have the special Ngondro. So today we will be talking about the general Ngondro. And from the general Ngondro, the first one is precious human birth. And since we are doing Ngondro, and I think it is also very important for us to know that since we are practicing, it's very important for us to make sure that the practice that we are doing is done properly. And because when we are practicing, everything is quite important. It's not only the practice, but also the place that where you are practicing, the time that you will be practicing, the friends that you are practicing with, and also the things that you'll be using during the practice. These are also very, very important. And for just like the first one, the place. And when you are practicing, it is very important that the place that you will be practicing is also like a very sacred place or a holy place like that. And because we believe that because if it is a very holy place or if it is a very sacred place, then this gives you a blessing. So when you are practicing, it makes your practice much easier, and you have the more motivation to practice. Because just like if you are going into a town, and if there are lots of like shops, then you like to buy something. And if there are like lots of things or amusement park like that, then you would like to play. So just like that, if it is blessed, then you also like to practice more. So the place is very important. So especially if it has been blessed by the great masters like before, Marpa, Mila Kampopa, or His Holiness the Karmapa, or Rinpoche's, or like Siddhi Rinpoche, Gyaltsa Rinpoche, Jamgon Rinpoche, like those, or like Thrangu Rinpoche, if it has been blessed by those, then the place is going to be very holy and very sacred, and it contains lots of blessing. So when you practice, it will be very good for you when you are practicing. So the place is also very important. And sometimes if you are doing in your home, then it is quite difficult because it has not been blessed by these great masters, but you can invite like some lamas to your home and ask them to bless. And then when it's been blessed, then it's quite useful. And then the second one is time. So when you are studying, it is quite important to start on very special date, like full moon, new moon, like this date. And if you are able to do that, then that is also quite helpful. Because as for an example, if you are growing a vegetable, or if you are growing rice, or if you are growing whatever, you need to have the perfect timing. Because if you grow the fruits that are grown in summer, if you grow that in winter, then it's not going to grow. And it is going to take much more effort. But if you know which fruit or which crops grows on which weather, then it is going to be of much more important. It's going to be much more easier for you, and also the place here. So from what you grow, depending on where you are, if there are lots of water, then you can grow something else. If there are less water, then you need to grow something else. If the altitude is high, there's something else you can grow. If the altitude is low, there is something else you can grow. If you know that, then you can grow something. So the place and the time we can know from what we grow in our farms. And after that, the third one is friend. And since we are talking about this, sometimes people say that your teacher is very important. Of course, our teacher is very, very extremely important. But the friends that we have is at least equally as important as our teacher, if not more. Because when we have the teacher, we don't spend so much time with our teacher. Like all of you, you have your own teacher. Some of you have your teacher is like His Holiness the Karmapa. Sometimes you have your teacher as our Very Venerable Thrangu Rinpoche, or maybe Tukuloti Nima Rinpoche, and all these Rinpoches and Tulkus. But you don't get to spend so much time with them. And you see them, you receive teachings from them, and then you go back. But the friends that you have who you practice together, you spend a lot of time with them. And the behavior or the actions that they do will rub on you. And just like that, the actions and behavior that you do will also rub on them. So that is very, very important. When you see them practicing, then you would also like to practice. When you see them like hanging out, going out, shopping, then you would also like to do that. So I think the Dharma friends are very, very important. So when you are spending so much time with your Dharma friends, it's very, very important for you to choose someone who can encourage you in practicing the Dharma, not like just hanging out, going out, talking about entertainment, unnecessary thing, gossip like that. So it is very important that you have a good Dharma friend. And the better Dharma friends that you have, the more time you will be spending on practicing. And then the fourth one is the things that you will be using, because sometimes when you are practicing, you do need some like offerings. When you are doing mandala, you need to do some offerings, or sometimes even if you just do like prostrations, or if you just like recite Vajrasattva mantra, you still need to like do some 7 offerings like that. And when you are offering, I think it is very good, or it is very beneficial if you are able to offer as clean and as best as you can. Because sometimes what people do is when they are cooking, when they need to eat rice, they will buy the better ones rice to eat for themselves. But when they are offering rice in the 7 bowls, they will use very low quality. And sometimes when they are eating, like when they are putting some bread on their butter, they will use very good quality. But when they are offering butter lamps, they will use very bad quality like that. And all this shows us that you don't have, or we don't have so much faith in these offerings, because we still consider ourselves as much better or more important than the 3 jewels. Because if we treat, or if we believe that 3 jewels are very, very important, then we will at least try to make offering as at least like what we eat or what we drink. But since we don't have so much faith, what we do is we eat the better ones, we drink the better ones, but when we are offering, we offer the bad qualities one. This proves that we don't have so much faith. We don't have so much faith in the triple gems. we don't have so much faith in being generous like that. So that is a sign that we still need to improve. We still don't have that much faith in the triple gems. So these are also very important. And with these four in mind, then we start with the first precious human birth. And when we are talking about precious human birth, we say Chopke, or 8 disadvantageous or unfavorable conditions and 10 favorable conditions. So about this, when you read this, it is like step by step. You can see that the numbers is quite easy to know or to understand. Like the first one is Hell realm, and then the second one is Hungry Ghost realm. The third one is Animal realm. The fourth one is the place where, like a barbarian, Lalo, or where you are like a barbarian or primitive. And then the fifth one is where if you are born as God of extraordinary life, a very, very long life. And the sixth one is being extremist. And then the seventh one is if you are born when there is no Dharma in this world. And then the last one, or the eighth one, is born as dumb or stupid. And Yalwa, or sorry, I'm speaking in Tibetan again. So the hell realm and the hungry ghost realm and animal realm, and these are all, I think most of us already know about that because most of us have been practicing or receiving teaching for such a long time. So it's quite easy for us to understand what these are. And animal realm, it's very easy. Even if you don't read or write, you still see them. And the fourth one, because even if we are born as a human, and if the Buddha didn't come to this world, and if he doesn't give teachings, then we will not be able to receive the teachings. Or if we are born in a place where there is no Buddhist teachings, then you will not be able to know about Buddhism. But these days, because of advance in technology, we can still receive so many teachings, but we will again not have that many Dharma friends to encourage us. So it is still quite not so good if you don't have like a place where there's not much Buddhism practices. And then the fifth one is gods of extraordinary longevity, or the gods that who can live for a very, very long time. Because what happens is when you are living for such a long time, and when you are being, or when you are born as a god, you will have such a wonderful life according what we see, what is wonderful, not according to the Dharma, but just according to our normal life. When we have a very good life, when we have a good family, when we have a good food to eat, if we have very good clothes to wear, expensive jewelries, very good life, looking good, looking young, like that, then we think it's very, very good. And when we have all these things, then we get distracted. We don't like to practice. And for an example, it's like what you like to do. If you get to do that, we normally don't think about the Dharma. So sometimes people like to watch movies. And when we are watching movies, so if you are interested in watching movies, and then when you are watching movies, you will not think about your family, you will not think about the Dharma, you will not think about your friends. Nothing will come into your mind. You will be just so absorbed into the movie. And if you are interested in listening to music, it's just like that. When you're listening to the music, you will not think about the Dharma. You will just be so absorbed and concentrated in listening to the music. So just like that, if you are born in a very extraordinary long life, God, then it's also just like that. So they will be enjoying and they will never remember about practicing. So you don't get to practice. And then the sixth one is being extremist, when if you don't have faith, or if you have faith in some other religion, then you also don't like to practice Buddhist Dharma. So that is also disturbed. And then the seventh one is if you are born during a time where there is no Buddhist teaching. So that is the seventh one. And then the eighth one is if you are born as a dump, or if you are born as a very, very stupid, then you would not be able to understand. But these eight, even if you learn, I think we didn't do anything in this life to be away from these eight. The circumstances were very favorable for us. And because of the circumstances, we are born as a precious human birth. So whether it is precious or not, it's depending on you. If you receive the teaching, if you practice well, then you have attained a precious human birth. But if you just born as a human, then that doesn't mean it's very precious. It's just a human birth. So there's a big difference between precious human birth and human birth. And you should be able to know about that. And now we are already free from all these eight. But what we need to do is we need to practice. And we need to check. Because if we look, if we compare with all these eight, if we compare with hell realm, if we compare with hungry ghost realm, we say the human birth or the number of humans is very, very less. But it's quite difficult, or it's almost impossible for us to compare with hell or hungry ghost. But what we can compare is we can compare with animal realm. And if you compare, like, if animals, just like if you lift a very big boulder, and then if you look underneath, then you will see so many insects, most of these, and it's almost impossible to count them. And just under one boulder, you'll be able to so many insects. Not only that, even in our own body, we have so many viruses. It's almost impossible for us to count. But if we are talking about human beings, it's not like that. It's very, very limited. No matter how big a country is, you can still be able to count how many humans are there in that country, or in this place, or in that town. And the number of humans is very, very small compared to animal realm. And if we compare with precious human beings, then it is much more less. It's very, very less. The amount or the number of precious human beings is very, very less. And with these example of the numbers, we can still realize that it's quite difficult to attain a precious human birth. So during this time, we have attained precious human birth, and we should not be wasting this precious human birth, because once we die, and if we haven't practiced well, and if we are born into maybe like hell realm or a hungry ghost realm, or like animal realm, then it is very, very difficult to again a precious human birth. And it is almost impossible, because if you just look at an animal, you will see most of them, they don't do much good virtues, or most of them will be eating other animals, harming other animals, and they won't be able to recite, they won't be able to have much like big compassion. They will have compassion like for their families or like that, but still they don't have so much compassion to like we are able to, like a human is able to. So that is why it is almost impossible for us again to achieve a human birth. And this time we have attained human birth, so we should not be making it go into a waste, and we should practice as much as we can, so that we will be at least be able to get a better life next time. And if we practice more, then we can get enlightened. And for an example, like if you for this, if you get a machine which can print money, and if you have that for 1 hour, then you will use that a lot. For the whole 1 hour, you will use that continuously, and then only after 1 hour you will stop. If you have for like 3 hours, you will still use that for 3 hours because you will keep printing on money for 3 hours. Just like that, you will not go this time into waste. So just like that, now we have attained, or we have got a very precious human birth. So this life is more important than the money, or like a printing money. So you should not make this life go into waste. So no matter how long we are living, whether we live for a very short time or long time, we should not go this time into waste. And we are not so sure how long we are going to live in this world. We are never sure. We might die today, we might die tomorrow. So we have no idea how long we are going to live. So that is why instead of wasting time, we should practice as much as we can, and we should practice and think that our precious human birth, how we have obtained this, and not only obtained this, we have met a very good teacher like His Holiness the Karmapa, the very venerable Khenpo Rinpoche, and other Rinpoches from different monasteries or from Thrangu monasteries. So we should not be wasting our time, and we should practice, and we should know that our life is very precious, and we should practice, and then we should gain enlightenment as much early as we are able to. And I think we can stop here. And sometimes what happens is I do get quite a few, I don't know what you say, request. I'm not so sure if I could say request to me. So I do get people to ask, yeah. Sometimes people to ask I should give more online teachings, but I think it is good because during this time, because of the pandemic, because of the coronavirus, since most of the people are in isolation, so it's very, very good when we are able to do this. But I think it's more beneficial when we are able to do it in person, when we are receiving teachings or when we are giving teachings. I think when we are near, I think there is certain amount of something is there when we are near. Just like, for an example, because when you are in a relationship, the relation that is long distance relationship, and then a distance that is not a long distance relationship where you are together, it's very, very different. Because and we have seen so many long distance relationship not working that well. Of course, there are some which works, but when it's long distance relationship, it doesn't last that much. But when you are together, living together, of course, there will be some difficulties, but the relationship is much stronger when you are living together, when you are being together. So just like that, I do think that if we are able to, then I think it's much better if we are able to receive teachings from a Lama when he is nearby. So, but during this time, I think since it's almost impossible to receive teaching directly from a Lama, even the Lamas are in quarantine or in isolation, even we are in isolation, even the students are in isolation, even if we want to, we cannot fly or we cannot go to a different place. Like we cannot go from KL to Cebu to wherever in Malaysia, and because of the lockdown, because of all this pandemic. So, but this time I think it's very, very good that we are able to do through online. And I would like to thank the members in our KL Center for all of you in arranging this online teaching. And I would also like to thank all of you for asking me to share some things that I have received from my guru, the Venerable Thrangu Rinpoche, and my teacher, Drupa Rinpoche. So whatever I've learned from them, whatever I've received from them, I feel very fortunate to be able to pass it to all of you. And thank you for all of you. And thank you all for giving me this opportunity. And we will continue again in next session. Thank you.